Jerry B is back in a new movie called Plane, which I can only hope is the first installment of a trilogy to also include the movies Train and Automobile. And I have my review right now. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, and this is my review of the new Gerard Butler film Plane. And yes, I do say it Gerard Butler because Gerard Butler used to try to get people to say his name Gerard Butler, but found out that people just wanted to say Gerard and gave up and lets people call him Gerard. But you know what? I'll call him Gerard because that's apparently his name. Anyway, Jerry B, as I also like to call him, is back with a new movie in theaters this weekend called Plane. It is directed by Jean-Francois Richet, whose biggest previous credit would be 2005's remake of John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. The screenplay for Plane is from first-time screenwriter Charles Cumming and J.P. Davis, who wrote last year's Chris Pine vehicle, The Contractor. For a lot of people, Liam Neeson has become the face of ever-present and yet not quite mainstream action. That kind of action movie that comes out at a weird time of year, doesn't have quite enough of a budget to achieve what it wants to, and yet sometimes, against all odds, manages to impress you. That's Liam Neeson for a lot of people. It is Gerard Butler for me. Cop Shop, Den of Thieves, Olympus Has Fallen, Greenland. He has provided some surprisingly solid entries in this genre over the past decade or so, despite never having that Michael Bay budget to pull off these big action plans. There have been some like Geostorm that were just god-awful, but a lot of the other films that he starred in may surprise people if they actually give them a chance. And so I will always give a new Gerard Butler action movie a shot. He not only stars, but also produced this latest action adventure where he plays commercial airline pilot Brody Torrance. What a great name. After a lightning strike renders his plane inoperable, Brody lands it on a remote island in the Philippines that naturally is run entirely by separatists and militias with no government assistance in sight.
Captain Brody Torrance. Captain Torrance isn't here.
With even mercenary help hours away, Brody teams up with prisoner in transport Louis Gaspar, played by Mike Colter, to defeat the bad guys, save the passengers, and find a way off of this island before everybody is held for ransom or worse.
There is no full rescue team coming anytime soon. Not for the next 24 hours. All right? We can't wait. They're going to come at us with everything they've got.
Despite the relatively fresh talent creatively on Plane, this is the exact same movie that Bruce Willis could have starred in 1994, or Harrison Ford could have starred in 2001, or yes, even Liam Neeson could have starred in circa 2009. I'm actually somewhat surprised that it got the high-class artsy title of just Plane. Very simple. I think that it very well could have gone with something a little more cute, a little more quirky, something like Brace for Impact or Friendly Skies or even Cruising Altitude. It would have been just as fitting for this movie. And Plane is everything that you would expect from this story in this genre with this actor. It is a true everyman versus the world tale with Butler fighting for his life alongside Colter, both of them outmanned, outgunned, and outnumbered. Sadly, despite prominent billing, Colter disappears from the second half of this movie, a surprise given that a lot of the first half establishes an air of mystery around his character.
Priest in the Legion used to say, redemption can only be found in the most unusual places.
I guess they ran out of time to do everything they wanted to do with the big action finale and everything else. This movie does run a pretty trim and frankly welcome after awards season, 1 hour and 47 minutes, which I think is almost perfect as far as movie lengths go, especially for a movie like this one. But I do wish that they had done more with this duo because they're great when they're on screen and then it just sort of fizzles out. And even though there are a few highlights, I walked away with the thought that a Mike Colter is a terrible thing to waste. I don't know what it is about Gerard Butler that gives his action characters this John McClane-esque everyman vibe. I mean, the man is built like a brick wall. He's not the guy that you see every day walking down the street. I think it's how the characters are written and how he performs them.
I'm okay. Now don't talk, just listen, because we might cut out, okay? quick, grab something to write with.
Because as with so many of his other action characters, Brody is somebody who looks flawed. He looks real. We see him struggle and sweat and panic and improvise and fail, and it makes us care about this character. I don't know how or why Gerard Butler has become such a punchline. Yes, he's been in some bad movies, but so have a bunch of other people. I don't know if it was all the 300 parodies. Maybe it was Gods of Egypt. There's really no way of knowing. I don't know why he's been pigeonholed as this guy who's in a bunch of terrible movies, because a lot of them, like Den of Thieves a few years ago or Cop Shop just a couple of years ago, were actually really, really good. It also helps that the supporting cast in the movie is solid, despite playing roles that are mostly archetypes. In addition to Mike Coulter as the convict with a mysterious past, we have Remy Adeleke as the mercenary on a mission, veteran character actor Joey Slotnick as the a-hole passenger, and Tony Goldwyn, the great Tony Goldwyn, as the cold-hearted but practical corporate fixer. All of them play their roles well, but really Tony Goldwyn in general kicks up the heat on just about any movie he's in just by walking through the door. Plane is not one of the best movies that you're going to see this year, but it's also not one of the worst. And when we look at January and the usual box office hangover, the garbage that we usually get in the early months of the year, and particularly this first month, I think Plane is a lot better than average. And actually, it and Megan have excelled in two ever-present genres, the cheap January horror movie and the cheap January action movie. Both of them have their flaws, including story issues, but they also both succeed not just through sheer competence, but by occasionally rising above that level. Plane does have plenty of flaws. There are some truly heinous visual effects. I'm talking Sci-Fi Channel original visual effects in the first half of the movie with the plane in the air. I think it's a symptom of the fact that this was a mid-budget movie that obviously for at least part of the production seems to have sprung for an actual full-sized plane to use in the film, so I guess you have to cut corners somewhere. And there are some stock characters that aren't really that interesting or useful, like the hero's daughter, the brutal gang leader, and the co-worker with kids back home. But where this movie needs to work, it does work, and without the absurd logical leaps that some bad action movies make you take in order to stay on board. You've seen movies like Plane a dozen times before, probably 3 dozen times before, but this iteration of it is pretty enjoyable. It's light, it goes down easy. Yeah, it's likely that you'll forget it as soon as you leave the theater, but I think you're going to have a good time when you're sitting inside those 4 walls of the theater, and probably also a good time, inevitably, when you rewatch the movie this June after you buy it on DVD for your dad on Father's Day. So yes, that is a recommendation for me on Plane. If this is the kind of movie that you like to seek out and enjoy, it is exactly the movie that you think it is based on the trailers, based on Gerard Butler. It's not exceptional, but it certainly is a few steps above acceptable. Thank you so much for watching my review of Plane. Stay tuned right here on this channel for more box office, awards, news, reviews, you name it. It's a busy time of the movie year, even though there aren't as many movies coming out as we ramp up to the Academy Awards and everything else. Thanks so much for spending part of your day here with me. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.